Good afternoon. For this lesson, we're going to be looking at table of equivalent ratios. Grab you a piece of paper and pencil. You will have a few notes to jot down, some example problems, and a couple of problems to complete to turn into class tomorrow. So grab your materials and let's get started. I can understand that a ratio is often used to describe a relationship between the amount of one quantity and the amount of another quantity, as in the case of mixtures or constant rates. I can understand that a ratio table is a table of equivalent ratios, and I can use ratio tables to solve problems. Equivalent ratios. Definition of equivalent ratios. If two ratios have the same value, when simplified, then they are called equivalent ratios. More about equivalent ratios is equivalent ratios can be obtained by multiplying or dividing both sides by the same non-zero number. So let's look at example 1. Number 1. To make paper machetes, the art teacher mixes water and flour. For every 2 cups of water, she needs to mix in 3 cups of flour to make the paste. Find equivalent ratios for the ratio relationship 2 cups of water to 3 cups of flour. Represent the equivalent ratios in the table below. Pause video to complete. So let's take out the solution. Let's take a look at what our table should look like. It says to make paper machetes, the art teacher mixes water and flour. For every 2 cups of water, she needs to mix in 3 cups of flour. So this actually gives me my ratio, 2 cups of water to 3 cups of flour. To make the paste, find the equivalent ratios for the ratio relationship 2 cups of water to 3 cups of flour. Represent the equivalent ratios in the table below. So I know with water I have 2 cups, and for flour I start out with 3 cups. So to get my equivalent ratio, I'm going to actually multiply both numbers by 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4 cups of water. 3 times 2 gives me 6 cups of flour. So I have 4 cups of water to 6 cups of flour. For my next equivalent ratio, I'm going to multiply 2 by 3 and 3 by 3. So 2 times 3 gives me 6. 3 times 3 gives me 9. So I can say that for 6 cups of water, I have 9 cups of flour. So now I'll multiply both numbers by 4. 2 times 4 gives me 8. 3 times 4 gives me 12. So for 8 cups of water, I'm going to have 12 cups of flour. And then let's multiply both numbers by 5. 2 times 5 gives me 10. 3 times 5 gives me 15. So I can say for 10 cups of water, I would have 15 cups of flour. And that's just to show that I'm doing the exact same thing to both sides when I'm multiplying and getting equivalent ratios. So example 2. JVR has a new job designing website. He is paid at a rate of $700 for every 3 pages of web content that he built. Create a ratio table to show the total amount of money JVR has earned in ratio to the number of pages he has built. So then JVR is saving up to purchase a used car that costs $4,200. How many web pages will JVR need to build before he can pay for the car? Pause video until you have tried to solve the problem. Okay, so let's look at the solution for example 2. If I go back up and look at my problem, it says JVR has a new job designing website. He is paid at a rate of $700 for every 3 pages. Here's my keywords in here for every. of web content that he builds. Create a ratio table to show the total amount of money JVR has earned in the ratio to the number of pages he has built. So I want to create my ratio table. So let's go ahead and fill in. Let's start here. We know that total page built, I know we start out with 3. And the amount he'll earn for that is $700. If I take and multiply both numbers by 2, I get 3 times 2 is 6 pages. And he will receive $1,400 because 700 times 2 is 1,400. 3 times 3 gives me 9. And if I do 700 times 3, I get 2,100. So if he builds 9 pages, he will receive $2,100. Let's do both numbers by 4. 3 times 4 gives me 12. 700 times 4 gives me 2,800. So for 12 pages built, he will earn $2,800. Let's do both numbers by 5. 3 times 5 gives me 15. 700 times 5 gives me $3,500. We do both numbers by 6. I get 3 times 6 is 18 pages built. And he will have earned 700 times 6 to get $4,200. If I do both numbers by 7, 3 times 7 is 21. And then 700 times 7 gives me 4,900. So if he builds 21 pages, he'll receive $4,900. And let's do both numbers by 8. 3 times 8 gives me 24. 7 times 8 gives me 5,600. So if he builds 24 web pages, he'll receive $5,600. So now JVR is saving up to purchase a used car that costs $4,200. How many web pages will JVR needs to build before he can pay for the car? So I want to know for $4,200. I can go back up here in my ratio table and I see that I have $4,200. And the amount of web pages you'll have to build to receive $4,200 is 18. So once he creates 18 web pages, he will have earned $4,200. So have ready for class in the morning. Spraying plants with cornmeal juice is a natural way to prevent fungal growth on the plant. If it is made by soaking cornmeal in water, using 2 cups of cornmeal for every 9 gallons of water. Complete the ratio table to answer the question that follows. A. How many cups of cornmeal should be added to 45 gallons of water? B. Paul has only 8 cups of cornmeal. How many gallons of water should he add if he wants to make as much cornmeal juice as he can? And C. What can you say about the value of the ratios in the table? Also, have ready for class tomorrow. The following table were made incorrectly. Find the mistake that were made, create the correct ratio table, and state the ratio that was used to make the correct ratio table. So looking at this first ratio table here, this one, there's a ratio that is incorrect, or at least one ratio that is incorrect inside this table. So once you figure it out, redo the ratio table in this table, and then down here state your ratio of what you need to use to make the correct ratio table. Also, another one to have ready for class tomorrow. The following tables were made incorrectly. Find the mistakes that were made, create the correct ratio table, and state the ratio that was used to make the correct ratio tables. So you're doing this just like the previous one we looked at. To sum things up, equivalent ratios. If 2 ratios have the same value when simplified, then they are called equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios can be obtained by multiplying or dividing both sides by the same non-zero number. Ratio tables. Ratio tables are constructed in a special way. Each pair of values in the table will be equivalent to the same ratio. these next couple of things go with the ratio table. You will actually learn more in our next lesson with lesson 10. But I'll go over them really quickly. You can use repeated addition or multiplication and create a ratio table. There is a constant value that we can multiply the values in the first column by to get the values in the second column. And then if you add a certain number to each entry in one column, you may not be able to add that same entry to the entries in the other column and keep the same ratio. Instead, the numbers you add to the entries must be related to the ratio used to make the table. However, if you multiply the entries in one column by a certain number, you can multiply the entries in the other column by the same number to create equivalent ratios. We will talk about these two more in our next lesson. So, have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow.